Namaste friends. Once again welcome to the Bhagavad Gita session. Today is our fourth lecture on Bhagavad Gita. You see a beautiful caption there. Go through Gita, grow through Gita. You can apply to Bible also, saying go through Bible, grow through Bible. So we continue. So first of all, we shall begin our session with the invocation. This invocation, at least the translation I have already introduced to you. So let me recite this invocatory formula of the Bhagavad Gita, which basically speaks about the importance of Bhagavad Gita. It goes like this. Sarvopanishado gavo dogdha gopala nandanaha partho vatsaha sudhir bhokta dugdham geetamritam mahat. I'll chant. Sarvopanishado gavo dogdha gopala nandanaha partho vatsaha sudhir bhokta dugdham geetamritam mahat. Let's chant together. Om Sarvopanishado gavo dogdha gopala nandanaha partho vatsaha sudhir bhokta dugdham geetamritam mahat. Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. The meaning of this verse is Upanishads are the cows, Gita is the milk, Krishna, the son of cowherd, is the milker, Arjuna is the calf, and the persons of purified mind drink this milk. If you want the link, YouTube link for the recitation of this verse, you have there below. I have already sent the PDF and the Word file to you in the Google Classroom. A small girl reciting this verse can have a look and listen to the same. So another thing is about the classwork, that's preparing the table of the names and verses of different chapters of Bhagavad Gita. You have already sent to me through WhatsApp. Maybe one or two are yet to send, others all of you have sent. So basically I have asked for the written text so that you write on your own by referring to the PDF text or whichever version of Bhagavad Gita you have. So you have done it, well done. So keep doing such work. Secondly, today we had this morning since today, the revision questions being asked, some 10 of them, through Google Classroom with the option of Google Classwork. So I try to ask these questions through Google Forms. So I am getting familiarized with the technical issues and the operation of this Google Classroom and Google Tools. So since there was some problem when I indicated the answer, I had indicated the wrong answer actually, which I did not know that I had indicated the wrong answer. But once you answered and you got the wrong answer there, many of you called me, messaged me, mailed me. So okay, that's, you take it as a demo version or it is a trial and error method. So henceforth we will set it right. So this is just to know what it is actually from both the sides. So thank you for participating in the same quiz or the classwork. I hope you are going through the text of Bhagavad Gita which is sent to you or whichever version you have. So let's finish reading at least once this Bhagavad Gita in 30 or 40 days. These 18 chapters, at least one chapter twice in a day. Well, you have 2 days for a chapter. So try to get familiarized with the text. So then I have sent some shlokas verses to the classroom. So out of 700 verses, I have picked from just 10. First verse, the last verse, and some important, significant verses. So you need to go through them. Okay, now we move on to the brief structure of Bhagavad Gita and what is the table. Basically, I am again dealing with the table which I already dealt with the additional column which speaks about some themes of Bhagavad Gita. So we have 18 chapters, the original title of the chapter in Sanskrit, its translation, number of verses and the themes. Just we shall brush through these chapters, names and verses. The first chapter is Arjuna Vishada Yoga, Arjuna's dilemma. There are 46 verses. It speaks about the setting and Arjuna's rejection to fight by looking at his own relatives. Second chapter is called Sankhya Yoga, which means transcendental knowledge, having 72 verses in the chapter, which highlights on the Krishna's protest, the duty of the persons belonging to different caste and honor, and the characteristics and nature of man of steady wisdom. Thirdly, the third chapter is called Karma Yoga, which means path of Karma Yoga, having 43 verses. It speaks about the work, sacrifice and Nishkama Karma, desireless action. Then fourth chapter is Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga, which means path of renunciation with knowledge. It speaks about incarnation or avatar, work as sacrifice, and how we can work for the welfare of the world, Loka Sangraha. Fifth chapter is called Karma Sannyasa Yoga, which means path of renunciation, having 29 verses. It dwells on unity of theory and practice, renunciation and action together. The sixth chapter is Atma Samyama Yoga, which means path of meditation. It has 47 verses. It speaks about two selves in human person and justification by faith. Seventh chapter is known as Jnana Vijnana Yoga, which can be translated as knowledge of the absolute. It has 30 verses. It highlights on the nature and attributes of God, types of devotee and worship. Then eighth chapter is known as Akshara Brahma Yoga. Here Akshara means the eternal Brahma. This chapter has 28 verses. It deals with unmanifest and manifest fate of soul. Then ninth chapter is known as Raja Vidya Rajaguhya Yoga. The meaning is supreme knowledge and big mystery, huge mystery. It has 34 verses. It speaks about God and creation, incarnation, cult, devotion, etc. 10th chapter is Vibhuti Yoga, manifestation of the absolute. It has 42 verses. It speaks about the quintessence or the crux of all devotion, God as the all highest or all powerful or almighty. The 11th chapter is Vishwarupa Darshana Yoga. The expression itself says vision of the cosmic form of Krishna. Cosmic form of Krishna. This chapter has 55 verses. We come to know the universal form of Krishna, celestial I, God as time in this chapter. And 12th chapter is Bhakti Yoga, path of devotion. It has 20 verses. This chapter and the 15th chapter are the smallest ones, having 20 verses only. It dwells on personal and impersonal God and God's love. Then we have 13th chapter, Kshetra, Kshetrajna Vibhaga Yoga, creation and the creator. It has 35 verses. It speaks about the real object, matter and spirit, and immanence of God. Then 14th chapter is Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga, which means it speaks about three natures or three constituents of nature. It has 27 verses. Then 15th chapter is Purushottama Yoga, which means the supreme person. It has again 20 verses, I told you. It speaks about the eternal victory, transmigration of the self or the soul, immanence and transcendence. Then 16th chapter is Daiva Asura Sampad Vibhaga Yoga, which means divine and demoniac qualities. It has 24 verses. It covers the topics like cardinal virtues, deadly sins, triple gate of hell. Then penultimate chapter is 17th chapter, Shraddhatraya Yoga, Vibhaga Yoga, which means threefold faith. It has 28 verses. It speaks about the exaggerated asceticism, food, sacrifice, ascetic practice, almsgiving, etc. Then the last ultimate chapter, final chapter is 18th chapter, Moksha Sannyasa Yoga, which means attaining moksha, liberation through renunciation. It is one of the biggest chapters, having 78 verses, and it speaks about renunciation and self-surrender. It also speaks about 4 classes of society: becoming Brahman, love of God, surrender, etc. So this is the brief structure of Bhagavad Gita, and totally we have 700 verses. Another important thing we should keep in mind, Mahabharata has 18 books. Bhagavad Gita has 18 chapters. Kurukshetra war took place for 18 days. It lasted for 18 days. Then further, if you look from Puranic side, in Puranas there are 18 Mahapuranas, then major Puranas, then 18 Upapuranas or minor Puranas. So ultimately, what is the importance of this number 18? 1 plus 8 also equals 9. So 18 is nothing but the doubling or addition of number 9 twice. So 9 is a mystical number, mystic number. And again further, this 9 is multiple of number 3. Number 3 is very important because it speaks about 3 gunas, sattva, rajas, tamas. It speaks about 3 functions of God: creation, sustenance and destruction, dissolution. It speaks about the 3 sounds of sacred syllable Om: Akara, Ukara and Makara. So ultimately, number 9 is a symbol of completion or perfection. And when we have 18, it is all the more perfectly perfect. It is completion. It is fullness. It is auspicious. It is abundance. So this is the importance of number 18. So this is one kind of looking at the structure of Bhagavad Gita. We move further. There is something called chaistic structure of Bhagavad Gita. What is chaistic structure? To understand this, you look at this picture. So here there is a sandwich. There is a toast of the bread. Then there is some slice of egg and some vegetables. Then at the end you have another slice or another piece of toast. So this is sandwich. Chaistic structure, it is also called as sandwich structure. which means at the beginning and at the end there is something, and at the middle there is another thing. So what do I mean charistic structure means? In Bhagavad Gita, in Bhagavad Gita there is such a structure we see. What is that structure? In the beginning and at the end there is a dialogue, and in between that there is another dialogue which is all the more important. Just to see these references. Just see these references. Chapter 1 verses 1 to 2, you have the dialogue between Dhritarashtra and Sanjaya. Dialogue. Then after that, in chapter 1 verse 2 to chapter 18 verses 73, you have the important dialogue between Arjuna and Krishna. And at the end, you have chapter 18 verses 74 to 78. The last part of Bhagavad Gita is again the conversation between Dhritarashtra and Sanjaya. In the beginning and at the end, conversation between Dhritarashtra and Sanjaya, and in between the essence of Bhagavad Gita, important dialogue is between Arjuna and Krishna. This is the charistic structure of Bhagavad Gita. There is another way of looking at Bhagavad Gita where we keep in mind the three paths of Hinduism. Which are those three paths? Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Jnana Yoga. Path of action, path of devotion, and path of knowledge. So, based on these three paths, Bhagavad Gita is divided into three parts. So, you see this picture. 18 chapters. From first chapter till the sixth chapter, that part is called Karma Yoga. Then 7th chapter to 12th chapter, it is called Bhakti Yoga. And final part is 13th chapter till 18th chapter, it is called Jnana Yoga. These are the three divisions of Bhagavad Gita. Now you see there above the second chapter and about the 18th chapter, summary is written. That means the second chapter and the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita are very important because it gives the basic teaching of whole of Bhagavad Gita. Try to understand, that's why these two chapters specially. Now the first chapter again, see there down below, it is written problem. The question of Bhagavad Gita is there in the first chapter. And what is the answer for this problem and the question? Where is it found? From the second chapter till the 18th chapter, answer to the question or answer to the problem of Arjuna. Arjuna's dilemma is answered from second chapter till the 18th chapter. So that's why another division is first to 6th Karma Yoga, 7th to 12th Bhakti Yoga, then 13 to 18 it is Jnana Yoga. Further, we can look Bhagavad Gita from another perspective which is propagated by Shankaracharya, one of the Vedantic philosophers. He says in Bhagavad Gita we see there is a correspondence of Tattvamasi, the great saying or the Mahavakya which is found in Upanishads. Chandogya Upanishad is getting corresponding, it matches with the structure of the Bhagavad Gita. We have already known the three parts of Bhagavad Gita. These three parts corresponds to the three words of that one Mahavakya, Tattvamasi. What is Tattvamasi? Tattvam-asi. Tat means that, Tvam means you, Asi means are. That you are, or you are that. Now this is said also in the Bhagavad Gita. How? From the first chapter till the sixth chapter you have Karma Yoga. This portion of Bhagavad Gita speaks about Tvam, you. It speaks about the human person, how to attain the knowledge of the self. Basically, that is said in the first portion of Bhagavad Gita. The second portion is part is 7th chapter, 12th chapter, Bhakti Yoga. It speaks about the Tat, divine, the Brahman, the Krishna. It speaks about Krishna. And the final portion or part is 13th chapter to 18th chapter speaks about relationship between Tvam and Tat, human person and the divine, you and the divine, you and Krishna. How to attain that, how to reach that goal, how to establish that unity and relationship with the divine is said in the last portion of Bhagavad Gita. This is about the another structure of Bhagavad Gita. Next we move on to the background of Bhagavad Gita. Now what is the background of Bhagavad Gita? You know, Bhagavad Gita is part of an epic, Mahabharata. And Mahabharata is the story of two rival royal families, Pandavas and Kauravas. So the story is, in the ancient time there was a king, he had two sons, Dhritarashtra and Pandu. Dhritarashtra was blind and Pandu was able to see. So since Dhritarashtra was blind, the kingdom was given to Pandu. This Pandu had 5 sons. They are called Pandavas. And Pandavas, as said in the text, were moral and virtuous. Whereas Dhritarashtra had 100 sons, and they are known as Kauravas, and they are depicted as immoral and vicious. Vicious is not so good. They lived with hook and crook. So now, after the death of King Pandu, Pandavas inherited the kingdom. Now, eldest among the Kauravas, that is Duryodhana, was jealous of the wealth of the Pandavas. Therefore, he harassed them. He asked for his share. So the kingdom was divided into two. One part went to the Kauravas, another part, equal part, went to the Pandavas. But Duryodhana was eldest among the Kauravas, not happy. He said, I want still more. Maybe because he said, we are 100, you are only 5. So I want a bigger share. So he invited Yudhishthira, the eldest among the Pandavas, for a game of dice. Dice for a lucky game. In the lucky game, by hook and crook, with cunningness, Duryodhana won. And according to the condition of the game, all the kingdom and property came to the Kauravas. And on agreement, Pandavas had to go to the forest for 12 years Vanavasa, and 13th year they should not be traced or recognized by anyone. They were to remain incognito. They should remain in disguise. Suppose they were traced by anybody, again 12 years they have to repeat the forest life. So 13 years Duryodhana continued his rule, and Pandavas came back after 13 years as per the agreement. And as per the agreement, once they come back, Duryodhana has to give back the kingdom of their share to the Pandavas. But Duryodhana said, I will not give an inch of land to you. All the elders tried to settle the problem amicably, peacefully, but of no use. It was a vain effort. So war was inevitable. War could not be avoided. On one side Kauravas, another side Pandavas. The eldest of Kauravas, Duryodhana, chose Krishna's army, whereas the Arjuna, the fighter among the Pandavas, with the help of Yudhishthira, the eldest among the Pandavas, chose Krishna himself. Now Krishna and Arjuna along with Pandavas were in the battlefield. Arjuna was on the chariot and Krishna was the charioteer because he was a local prince according to the story. And when Arjuna saw Dronacharya, his own teacher, Bhishma, his own grandsire, his own relatives, kith and kin and friends, he becomes mentally dull. Some kind of emotion dominates over him and becomes intellectually paralyzed. He surrenders his bow and arrow, keeps down, and asks Krishna for a pay. And that time, Krishna gives him a sermon instruction, and that instruction is Bhagavad Gita. This is the background of Bhagavad Gita. Next issue we are dealing with is what is the ethical problem and crux of Bhagavad Gita. The ethical problem of Bhagavad Gita is Arjuna is in the battlefield and he realizes that by looking at his own brothers and sisters, blood relatives, friends, kith and kin, he realizes that by fighting I will lose my friends and relatives. So under this emotional influence, he forgets his family and social duty. He is supposed to fight as Kshatriya, as warrior. He retires, he comes back, or he takes back. He doesn't fight. His personal inclination and emotions dominates over, and thus he does not do his duty. This is the dilemma of Arjuna, ethical problem of Arjuna, whether to fight and kill his own family members or not to fight and remain single or remain silent. Not single, remain silent. This is the ethical problem of Arjuna. What is the crux of Bhagavad Gita? The crux of Bhagavad Gita is we should not be unnecessarily worried about the consequence of a duty or work. You should fight, you should do your family and societal duty for the happiness that by doing your duty well, you will get liberation. Don't get attached to your emotions. The result of your work will be given by God, but you do your duty. This is the crux. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, a mystic, Bengali mystic of 19th century, gives another essence of Bhagavad Gita. He says, you just reverse the word, the syllable of the word Gita, and you will find the essential call of Bhagavad Gita. What is the word? Gita. You reverse it. How do you reverse it? You see the picture here. Gita has to be reversed as Tagi. He says, Tagi means Tyagi. Tyagi means one who has abandoned, one who has renounced. And this is the basic call of the Gita to Tyaga. Tyaga means abandon, renounce or surrender. In the Bhagavad Gita, the last chapter, verse 66 says, Krishna says to Arjuna, surrender all your duties, renounce everything and come to me and I will liberate you. This is the essence of Bhagavad Gita. So we have dealt with the brief structure of Bhagavad Gita, then chaistic structure, then three paths, how do they correspond to Bhagavad Gita, three divisions, Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, path of action, path of devotion, path of knowledge. Then what is the Shankara's view on Bhagavad Gita? How does Mahavakya Tattvamasi correspond to the structure of Bhagavad Gita? Then we have the background of Bhagavad Gita. Then we have the ethical problem and crux of Bhagavad Gita. So, and finally, some classwork or homework for you. The question is, what are the imageries used in these verses? And comment on them in your own words. I have given 8 references here. Kindly go through these references. I will send you the text, this text. And also I will post some information in the Google Classroom about this classwork. How do you write, mode and method of submission. You have to just see the reference. You have the text with you, PDF, or you can have hard copy also. It is you are free to decide. Just see the references and what is the imagery and analogy used. What do you say about it? That's all. So that's all for now. So see you next time. Shall meet you again. Kindly update, read, revise. All the best. Thank you.